The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back, Comfortably Zoned in Nevada Pine Tar, the podcast about the book. My co-author is George Grimm. He's here. I'm Ralph Tycho. Hey, George.
How you doing, Ralph?
We have a very special guest. He's featured in the book, and it gives me great pleasure because he went through some major back surgery, and he was entertained by the book. He read it in its entirety, said nice things about it, and today he tells me he's reading it again for the second time. 500-page book, and George and I talked off the air with Jerry. We are so complimented. Jerry Feitelberg, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Ralph.
Oh, thank you, George. It's a pleasure to be with both of you. And as I said, I am rereading the book. I'm up to about page 350. And it's just a joy to read the stories. There's so much to absorb while you're reading it. And I may have missed some of the stuff when I was in the rehab center reading the book the first time. Don't forget it. I was, I wasn't on medication, but I was in resting, and I was in a wheelchair. I didn't have a regular chair. I had to sit in a wheelchair in the bed in physical therapy for my 11 days while I was there. But it was a great companion for me.
Tell me before we go any further, are you progressing as well as you were soon after the surgery?
Oh, yeah, it's coming along. I do 2 sets of exercises a day. They're not very difficult. They're just to strengthen your core so that you can have better balance when you stand up. And I've graduated from a walker. I use a walking stick around the house now. And in some instances, I just walk on my own. I'm coming along. So each day, I do a little bit more walking alone, using the walking stick. And when I was in Costco this afternoon, I didn't use either because you have the cart and that acts as a walker. So I put on I did a few steps while I was going through Costco. Big store.
Good. Wow, it is, and that's tremendous. George, you don't know Jerry as well as I do, and I would like you to get to know him by asking the questions that you're curious about. The California Pharmacist of the Year in 1995. That's Jerry. Jerry was the Oakland A's pharmacist when Tony La Russa, Canseco, McGuire were all there in their heyday. Right. And so, George, you quiz him about what you're curious about, which is the way we wrote the book. Please.
Yeah, probably just to go back a little bit further. When did you and how did you meet Ralph?
That's a good question. I think I met Ralph on Facebook.
Yes.
Probably that way, because one of the things once I stopped practicing pharmacy. I retired from pharmacy a few years ago, and after I sold my business, I started doing a program in Alameda on Alameda TV. The city of Alameda had its own cable system, and I wrote, hosted, and produced 18 hours of television for Alameda TV. I don't know if Ralph saw it at the time. It was probably Comcast. Comcast didn't want to do it. And then I joined up with Sports Radio Service, and I started writing features about baseball for them. And then as time went on, I became the beat writer for the Oakland, covering the A's for Sports Radio Service. I do some Giants games, but not as many. And that's how it all got started. And then we would post all the stuff on Facebook. So maybe Ralph picked up on it. I don't know. How did you find me?
I picked up on it, and I realized you were an Alamedan. For many years, you owned a pharmacy that you sold that was very, very successful. And you've lived a blessed life. You don't mind my telling your age. You're almost 40.
Almost. I just turned 83 a couple of weeks ago.
Oh my God! Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you sing great voice and great mind. It's a perfect combination for podcasting. And you've given me many, many hours. We did a show with Nancy Finley for a long time. We had Lockwood, Skip Lockwood.
Skip Lockwood, yeah.
We did a lot of hours with him.
Yeah. We did one with Peter Gollenbach, who wrote the foreword for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he did.
And who also said that the book was brilliant.
Yeah.
Don't forget that.
That's one thing George and I will never blow against the wind. He said it. He must mean it. We're going to go with it.
Yeah.
And we're not all that humble because the book has gotten terrific reception from people like you, Jerry. This is all the way it was put together. It was the way George planned it. I did the majority of the interviews, if not all of them, or sometimes we did them as a group. But Jerry put the book, or George put the book together. Talk about that, how that's put together, Jerry, and how easy it is to go from chapter to chapter, if you would.
Well, yeah, it starts off. I'm trying to think back of all the chapters. You've got discussions with Gollenbach and Alan Blumkin, and you go through a series of stuff in the beginning, and then you have people like Mark Littell tell his story about how he became a baseball player, his time with the Kansas City Royals and the St. Louis Cardinals, and what he did after when he was finished as a player, and what he did after that, and all the different stories. And you had interviews with Mudcat Grant, who unfortunately passed away a short time ago. And so the stories with Fritz Peterson, all the different players, and what's really so rich about the book is that you get background stories that you'd never get in a newspaper. You just don't get them anymore.
Right.
Yeah. And all the long form interviews that Ralph did, he's really good at that, and they really came out well. Yeah, and one of the things is one of the players was talking about when Ralph was the salesman for the Topps baseball cards, and he would pay the player $5 and get a contract. And there was another guy that was ahead of him. I can't think of the guy's name. And when he found out that Ralph was the Topps guy, the player yelled at him the name of the guy that was the Topps guy before him. So that was kind of interesting, because whoever thinks of the guy who signs the players to the contracts for Topps and how little money they were getting, $5 to get their likeness, but a hell of a
$5 to sign. And I signed some terrific players over the 13, 14 years that I did it in the Northwest and the California League. And that's where I met Mark Littell, among others that are featured in the book, like Mackmer, who was the manager of the Stockton Ports when Sheffield was there. And there's a very interesting story in the book about Gary Sheffield and what he's all about. We pull no punches, and the thing that George and I are most proud of, it's 500 pages and no fluff.
No fluff, that's right.
No added filler. There was so much that didn't get in the book because you can't have everything. And so we narrowed it down a little bit and left a big basis for I've been looking at what's included, what's not. There's going to be a second book along the way someday. We got to do this book justice and get the word out there. And we are doing these podcasts to give people a reason to buy the book. And not only that, I have a dream that the book is in most every library. I mean, it's not going to be every library, but most every library in New York, California, and Florida. And that should cover all the podcasters, where they live, and put the book in enough libraries that wherever you go in those 3 states, the states where we live, 50 years from now, they can read about us, the people who are featured in the book, and what we wrote. So I was accepted in the Alameda Library, bought a couple of books, my hometown where I'm living, and it gave me inspiration. I'm going to go to the library in Queens and have the book put in there, for instance. So, we also, as Jerry would say, quelling about, and I say too, quelling about the result of our efforts, which I might add were not effort. It was a labor of love, and it was fun. And
it was fun, and I can honestly say that I learned a lot writing the book. There's many times when I thought I knew something, but I didn't know the background of it, and or I didn't know the background of a certain player, and it was really, really interesting to work on. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I haven't said this on the air anywhere before, but what was the one thing I asked you every week when we check in with each other? And I had to make sure that what we were doing interested you.
Yeah, well, it was still holding my interest. Yeah,
and it did. That was my main goal. I knew if I could keep you interested in it, you were the perfect demographics for us. And you grew up in New York. You were an avid sports fan, more of a hockey fan than anything. But I've got a picture of you on the internet in a Mets cap in Bermuda. Or something. So you were the perfect person to do this, and I enjoyed the experience so much. I want to tell you that on every show we do. And the result is you've completed my life in a lot of ways by this. And but I haven't stopped dreaming about the future. And Jerry asked me this a while back, and I kind of laughed. He said, well, when will there be another one? And I kind of laughed. I said, Oh yeah, another one. We had just completed. We just got published on this one. I thought, wow, there won't be another one. But now that I'm taking it all in, and I see the joy that it's bringing. And again, I can't thank you enough, Jerry, for the compliments.
Oh, you're welcome, Ralph. And as I said, you meet so many people in baseball, and for me and you, we can meet now. I mean, and we talk baseball, over lunch, and it's really great. There's another fellow that Eric Gray. Eric wrote a book called Bases to Bleachers, and it's all these anecdotal stories about their people going to their first time going to a baseball game, which was kind of nice. And so he put together a book, and now he's working on a second book. And Eric does readings, and he'll do he uses Zoom, and he'll do readings. And I think last year we did a fundraiser. My older daughter's involved with a group called the East Bay Children's Law Offices, where they represent children, and it's a nonprofit group. And my daughter's the president. She's a judge in Contra Costa County. So
very precocious kids that are lawyers. Wow. That's wonderful.
Yeah, my daughter just got appointed by Governor Newsom to be a judge. Superior Court in Walnut, the Martinez, which is the county seat for Contra Costa County. So we're very proud of her, but I don't think she's the baseball fan that I am. She'll go to a game because her husband likes it, and you got to remember, he's a Dodger fan, so he's sort of in the Bay Area. He can't show up the game wearing his Dodger outfits. He won't make it out of the stadium.
Ironically, as a New York Giant fan growing up, there are very few of us left. Harold Bach, Heshe is one, and I'm one. But there are very, very many Dodger fans, Brooklyn Dodger fans who have followed them throughout the years, and I really can't say that I hated them like I did when I was a kid. I hated the Dodgers. You were either a Giant fan or a Yankee fan. You had to make a choice. And
I understand the hate. I grew up as a Red Sox fan, and guess who I hated? It was a team in New York.
Boston Braves. Okay.
It was the Yankees.
Hated the Dodgers. Oh, okay.
No. I hated the Yankees. I was a Red Sox fan, hated the Yankees. And actually, the Dodgers were my second favorite team. And my third favorite team was any National League team that would play the Yankees in the World Series, and we rooted for them to beat the Yankees.
You had some wonderful boyhood memories being a Red Sox fan. Talk to Ted Williams a little bit. Talk about Ted Williams a little bit, if you would.
Oh, watching Ted Williams play, I got to see him in person and on TV. But when he came to the plate, there was just a buzz in the crowd. And he used to pull on his cap, and he tapped the plate with his bat, and he got up there, and you knew his vision was so good. If he took a pitch and he got a called strike on an inside pitch and he looked at the umpire knew he blew the call. One of my fondest memories was coming. I went to a doubleheader one year. You remember doubleheaders? You used to see one in addition, and I'd be gone for the day. And I sit on the bleachers in right field, and it would cost me 50 or 75 cents for the game. And transportation was, in those days, I could go anywhere in Boston for a nickel on the subway system because I was a kid. So I go out there, and I remember, I think it was in 1953 when Ted Williams came back after his tour of duty in Korea. I was sitting in the doubleheader. I think he went 8 for 9 for the day.
Wow.
It was just amazing, and it was just a joy to win. And, you know, he was an interesting guy. You know, he came from a poor family in San Diego, and he was loud. He was brash. His teammates loved him. One of the greatest books written about him wasn't a long book, but it was a good book. It was called Teammates by David Halberstam, and it talked about his relationship with Johnny Pesky, Bobby Dorr, and Dom DiMaggio. And those guys, they were just friends for life. And they just loved Ted. And Ted was such a student of the game. He was a wonderful hitter, great teammate. He loved kids. He was involved with the Jimmy Fund, which was started around 1948. And he liked to do things quietly for the kids. He did not get along with the press in Boston. Oh, man. There were a couple writers. There was a fellow by the name of Dave Egan, known as the Colonel Dave Egan, and he just wrote terrible things about Ted Williams, and it was just a running battle with the press all those years. But the fans loved him, and in fact, there's a tunnel that goes from Boston to the airport, and it's the Ted Williams Tunnel. He was just absolutely a phenomenal ball player.
Absolutely, and a war hero. As a matter of fact, he rode on the wing. He didn't ride on the wing, but he was the wingman for the astronaut, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, for John Glenn.
John Glenn.
Yeah,
right.
Williams did not fly in combat in World War II. He was a trainer. Yeah, but he did fly combat in Korea. The only baseball player that flew combat in World War II and in Korea was Jerry Coleman. Coleman, and I met Jerry Coleman in 2010 when he was a broadcaster with the Padres, and they were playing the Giants. It was the last game of the season. And the Giants won, and of course they went on to win the World Series that year. And I had a very long conversation, very fortunate to have a very long conversation with Jerry Coleman, talking about what it was like back in the days when the Yankees and Red Sox, the Yankees were eating the Red Sox lunch all those years, and it was kind of illuminating. It would have been, if he were alive, I would have loved to have him in the book, because he had so many stories, and you know, he was from San Francisco.
Absolutely. And when I was a kid, he was.
By the way, Ralph, he and Charlie Silvera and Gil McDougald, all these San Francisco guys, used to come over and play baseball at Washington Park in Alameda. Did you know that?
I certainly did. Michael Duca, our mutual friend and fellow who's also an official scorer, who's featured in the book, and another Alamedan at one time or another in his life, told me the story that on Pearl Harbor Day, Silvera and two of the other people that you mentioned, not McDougall, he was a little young for that. Bobby Brown, right? They found out they were playing in Alameda on that morning of Pearl Harbor on Sunday morning, and that's how they found out about it. So Alameda and Bill Rigney was born and raised in Alameda, yes. And Willie Stargell went to high school at Encinal High School, and so did the Rollins brothers, and yes. Sister was the best athlete of them all.
Don Dontrell Willis pitched at.
Dontrell Willis, right? Went to my kids' boys and girls center. Good friend of my real good friend Carlos Alaswaki Archibek, who have a Carlos Archibek and a Carlos Alice Rocky in my past. But my point, and there were others that lived in Alameda, a real baseball town culture. So, and that came up in my book many times. George, anything else that you'd like to ask?
Getting back to Ted Williams. There's actually a cute story in the book. I'm not sure if it was one of the umpire interviews or maybe Charlie Silvera, but Williams was at the plate, and there's a pitch, and it was a close call, and the catcher, it might have been Charlie Silvera, I'm not sure. He thought for sure it was a strike, and the umpire called it as a ball, and the umpire leaned over to him and said that all these people didn't come to see you catch, kid. They came to see him hit. So
yeah, I think that was Charlie Silvera.
Yeah,
you're absolutely. And you're not going to read that anywhere else. I mean, these are stories, interviews that I had when I got off the phone and I was shaking my head. I'm Walter Mitty. I'm learning things. It's like being on the inside. And I think the book reflects that. It is what it is, and like I say, Jerry's the one to explain it on this show. Anything you'd like to add, Jerry?
About the book? All I can
about anything you want. How about that?
Well, my experiences in baseball. You talking about being Walter Mitty. When I became the pharmacist with the A's in the '90s. Pure serendipity. This is a great story. My store was on Park Street in Alameda, downtown Alameda, and we had several restaurants in the area. And one day, the trainer for the A's, Barry Weinberg, came into my store, and he came over to me and said, "How would you like to work with the A's?" Right out of the blue.
Wow.
And I said, "What do I have to do?" And he said, "Well, we have a kit. We have about 65 medicines in the kit, and we put it together, and then the players get their medication, and then if they're injured, it's handled differently because it's considered workers' compensation." So I said, "Fine." So he sent me a list, and I sent it over, and I didn't hear anything from them until before the start of the '93 season. And then I got a call and said, "We'd like you to come on board." And that's how it happened. And I was with them for several seasons. And just as it came, they had a change in the front office. Weinberg had left. McGuire had been traded. Lewis had left after '95. So, and things changed, and they had a new front office, and they decided that they wanted to go in a different direction. I mean, the amount of business I did with them in the course of a season was not a huge amount of money. So, but, it was a business decision, and they decided to go elsewhere, which was fine. So it came in mysteriously and left mysteriously. But the first time I went down to the locker room and got to see with the training room, the locker room, and what it was like, it was like a kid in a candy store. I was in hog heaven. And that my wildest dreams, I had to think that I would be associated with a Major League Baseball team. It was beyond my comprehension. I would go to the games as a fan, and I loved going to the games. And now I had all this inside information, and I see guys like McGuire and Giambi, and I see one of my favorite stories was Jason Giambi had a quadricep injury, and he was on the training table, and Art Howe was the manager, and Art Howe is one of the finest gentlemen you'll ever meet in baseball. if Art were with us, he'd love this, what we're doing now, talking about baseball. He'd just love it. And you would think we were friends for life. And he would just meet you. That's the kind of guy he was. And the way they portrayed him in Moneyball was atrocious. And I talked to her about that. It wasn't in the book, George, but I had the pleasure of throwing out the first pitch the night the A's went for their 20th straight win in 2002.
Wow.
55,000 people were in the stadium. Yeah. And my name goes up on the message board, and I'm introduced by Roy Steele, who everyone said had the voice of God. Yeah, the voice of God. And I did not throw the ball in the dirt. I threw a slider, and my catcher was Eric Burns, and he signed the ball for me. And that was a phenomenal experience, an absolute phenomenal experience to throw out the first pitch, 55,000 people. Oh, unbelievable. But, I met so many players over the years. So Giambi's on the training table, and he has this injury, and Art goes over and talks to him and says, Jason, if I put you in the lineup today and you're on second base and there's a single up to center, do you think you could score? And Giambi sort of hedged. He wasn't sure. And Art said to him, he said, look, son, you're going to be in baseball for a long time. I want to make sure that you're 100% because I don't want to have you make the injury worse. So, but that was the kind of guy Art Howe was. And of course, in his first 3 years with the team, they weren't very good at all. In 96, 97, 98. They got better in 99 when they got Tim Hudson, and then they got Mulder and Zito, and then they made it to the playoffs. But that was the story. And so many other guys came through, guys like Matt Stairs. There was a guy, he's managing the Diamondbacks, a guy by the name of Torey Lovello. And Torey was one of the few guys, and he was so nice, and he'd come up to you, and he would introduce himself. Hi, he said, hi, my name is Torey Lovello. Nice to meet you. What's your name? And you don't get that with players. A lot of the players have their game faces on, and you see them every day. They walk by you. One year, I said to the big guy, McGuire, he walked by me, and I said, you're not going to say hello to me this year? He says, oh, I'm sorry. Hello. So these are the things these are the stories that happen in baseball. And one year I was down in spring training, and Canseco had come back to the team. He had been traded back from the Red Sox for the 97 season. And I had sprained my back, and he had back issues at that time. And so we were sort of simpatico. Here I am wearing a back brace, and he's got a bad back. So we were like partners with a similar injury to the back. So you never know. But it was a great experience for the time that I was with him.
Yeah. Good memories.
Oh, yeah.
But George, you want to, anything else you'd like to ask Jerry?
Yes. What about modern day baseball? How do you feel about the game today?
The game is tough to watch. I hate the shift. I hated the 7-inning doubleheaders. I hated the runner going in at second base to start the 10th inning. One of the games I covered, I forgot what year it was. It might have been 2012, 2013. The A's and Angels played a 19-inning game. The game started at 7:00 and didn't end until 1:45 in the morning. And I was writing the game summary for it. And the game ended when Brandon Moss hit a home run, and a walk-off home run in the 19th inning. And I saw Brandon the next day, and I asked him about it. And he said his arms were so tired. He was so tired at the end of the game, but he was so thankful when he saw the ball going, and he said, "Please get out of here, get into the seats. I want to go home." And we all wanted to go home. And I got home at 2:45 in the morning that day. That was, and the A's played another 18 or 19 inning games, I think, with the Yankees later that year too. That took forever. But the game today is so tough. And I mean, in the playoffs, you had in the 4-hour games for a 9-inning game.
Yeah.
It's way too long. Walks, strikeouts. The shift is killing the game. There's no more hit and run. There's no more bunting. There's no more stealing bases. And it's tough to watch. It's exciting when they hit a home run, but boy, I'll tell you, I hope they do something about. They're talking about putting in a pitch clock, but that's not really going to help it. The pitching changes. They pitchers 6 and 7 guys from each team in a game. There's 13 or 14 pitchers in a game. It's unbelievable. And on the scorecards that we get, there's only 4 lines. So you got to figure out we're writing lines, pictures down to keep track of what they've done when they're in the game. So the game is great. The lore of the game is great, but I wish they could get it figured out so the game goes by a little faster.
Right.
And on the plus side of baseball, the pure talent level, I'm not talking about the skill level, I'm talking about the talent level, is unbelievable. The guys playing in the 50s, very few of them, the Mazes, the Mantles, what have you, but few and far between could be playing today. These guys are terrific talent-wise. They just don't have the time in the minors to develop their skills. And the priority of just hitting a home run, it makes for a boring ball. Home run or strikeout. No hit and run, no get them on, get them over, get them in anymore. And I miss baseball the way it was. How about you, George? What do you miss about baseball?
The humbleness of the players. I mean, when Mickey Mantle used to hit a home run, he used to run around the bases with his head down because he didn't want to show up the pitcher. Now, all they want to do is show up each other. They're posing at the plate. They're flipping the bat. It's just, it is, very hard to watch. And I just wish it would go back to the way it was. It won't, but it's just something we'll have to get used to, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the big changes has been the pitching. The starters, if the guy goes 5 innings or 6 innings now, that's all they're expected to do. One of the great games that ever happened was in 1963, and it was the 16-inning game between the Giants and the Braves, where Warren Spahn and Juan Marichal hooked up for it. And the manager of the Giants wanted to take Marichal out in the 9th inning, and he said, "You can't take me out. That guy's 42 years old, and he's still pitching. And if you take me out, I'm going to look bad." And so they went into the 16th of the inning, and then Willie Mays hit a home run off of Spahn to win the game 1-0. But the pitchers used to go out there expecting to go the full 9 innings. Robin Roberts one year, 39 starts, 26 complete games. Johnny Sain, 40 starts, 28 complete games in 1948 for the Boston Braves. And that's the way it was. That's what they're expected to do. And one of the stories is you're talking about the relievers and a closer back before they have the specialists now, a 6th inning guy, 7th inning guy, 8th inning guy, and a closer. The pitcher would come in as a reliever in the 6th or 7th inning, and he would expect to go 2 or 3 innings to finish the game. But now they only go one inning. And so that's what slows the game down, and it makes it so difficult to watch. And it really, as a fan, you're sitting squirming in the seats. When is the game going to get over? You know, the game starts at 7. You're going to get done at 11. By the time you get home and go to bed, you got to go to work the next day. It makes it tough on the fans.
Right.
So, you know, games used to be played in 2 hours and 15 minutes, and now a 3-hour game is just the standard.
Yeah.
Very few games are less than 3 hours. So those are things that they have to look at. And I'd like to see them do something about the shift, because you can't get a hit up the middle. And a left-hand batter, they're losing hits because the second baseman is playing in short right field. So I'd really like to see the shift eliminated, or just limited to maybe one batter an inning or something like that. So
well, I'd like to see some team try to beat the shift on a regular basis. And
okay,
yeah.
So anyway, Ralph, I've got to go. This has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation with you and George, and I hope we can do it again.
Thank you, Jerry. It's been good to talk to you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I got to sign off, so it was wonderful talking with you. And Ralph, I'll be in Alameda for Thanksgiving, so I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and say hello to Tally, and take care.
You the same, and continue to recuperate, Jerry. I know what you're going through, and I'm proud of you that you did everything the doctor said to do pre-op. You lost a little weight, you got your cholesterol down a bit, and so. You know, it's self-preservation, and I'm glad you're surviving.
Yeah, thank you, Ralph. Okay,
all right.
Nice chatting with you, George. Bye now.
All right, good night.
Good night, Jerry. And George and I will kind of wrap it up. Anything you want to talk about, George, about the book, about you, about life? First of all, I'd like to wish your wife, Teresa's dad, all the best. He's struggling right now.
Yeah.
And
but, hanging in there. Otherwise, as far as the podcast, you have been, actually working me almost like a dog, I got 2 today.
And we may have 2 on Sunday. Mark Littell at noon California time, and Peter Golenbach in the evening. So, and then we're going to take some time off from podcasting for a few weeks. At least I'm going to stop working you like that. 2-week vacation will be good, because we worked and it's play, but it's work in a sense. I'm not saying it isn't, especially for you. About 1.5 years on this, and I don't think we stopped. We had some illness, but other than that, we've been pushing it, and the results are great. We're coming out in hardback either the end of this week or the beginning of next week, and I'm delighted again. I thank you for making my life complete.
My pleasure.
Well, I have to say you and Tally making my life complete. But that you take how about 49%? That's enough.
I'll take it.
That's all you. All right. You yourself stay well, and we'll talk at you soon. thank you for listening, everybody. We're trying to give you a reason to not only buy the book for yourself, recommend it to your local library, and buy it as a gift. It's the holiday season, and it's better than buying a bunch of junk from China. I can assure you of that. I have to, or anywhere else. I think the Chinese gentlemen and women do a fine job, and they buy books too. So I'm not gonna insult anybody, but be well, and thank you again. All right. Thanks, George. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Happy trails and adios.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.